What's up, duelists? Now, I know most of you guys are Edison players, but I've got to do a video on this deck. This is like my favorite deck. I've uploaded once with it before. It did okay, it did all right. It did, whatever. But I know most of you guys like Edison format. However, before you guys like immediately click off this video or whatever, maybe check it out. There's a lot of really cool interactions that happen in this video that can really only happen in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think there's actually a lot of things to learn from this video that also apply back to Edison format. Even if you aren't, about this, I did also upload a Flamvell video today. Make sure and check that one out if you haven't already, if Edison is more your thing. And leave a like on, your way out, if you do decide to leave. But I honestly, I would definitely say stay, because these games are hella sick. These games are hella sick. I've got 3 games against high tier decks with my Despia deck. I'm going to explain a little bit about what the deck does, and then we'll get into the replays. This is a deck that takes a little bit more thought and a little bit more focus, so I can't narrate and play as effectively as I really would like, but I do have 3 really amazing replays against meta decks that I wanted to show you guys and kind of talk through. Alright, let's talk about the theory behind the deck. So when I'm building this deck, what I'm thinking is, man, I want a deck where I have unreactable spells, because I think unreactable spells and stuff are super broken. I want to have a deck that plays the best, Omni negates, I guess, or best type of whatever. And then I want to play a deck that can grind through long games. So those are my 3 big things. I don't want to auto lose to any one card. I think that's very frustrating. I know most decks in current Yu-Gi-Oh! Auto lose to 1 or 2 cards. And this deck does a pretty good job against just about everything that kind of delivers auto losses in the format. And that's mostly in part thanks to Super Polymerization and Branded in Red. One of the biggest cards that locks people out of the game in this format is Artifact Scythe. Let me pull it up for you guys who don't know what it does. Artifact Scythe basically says when it's special summoned, your opponent can't special summon from the extra deck for that entire turn. Thankfully, if you're playing this deck, that doesn't really affect you because you can special summon from the extra deck on your opponent's turn thanks to Super Polymerization and Branded in Red. Super Polymerization also helps you break boards really easily and just get through a lot of annoying cards that basically have built-in Solemn Judgments. This is a deck that does play Mystic Mine. I know a lot of players have whined about Mystic Mine. I have played just a little bit of current format Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm getting really more into it this year because I'm practicing to play in a YCS. I've been grinding a lot of games. I've been just thinking about deck concepts, deck theory and stuff. And I think if you kind of just adjust your perspective, I think Mystic Mine is a very broken card, and I think you should be playing it if you can. There's no reason not to be playing this card. I think taking a moral high ground and not playing this card is kind of stupid. I think it's just a very good card, and it helps you come back from lost positions in a way that no other card can really do that. It gives you modal options with your terraforming. So my terraforming here can search for the Theater or the Branded, which we'll get into in a second. And it can also search for Mystic Mine. So it makes your terraforming kind of a two activation type of spell thing, which is very good. Another thing that I like about this deck is that they printed a card very recently called Guardian Chimera. Now this card is this was a huge buff to this deck. When I was playing this deck previously, it was kind of like a tier 3 rogue deck, like meme shit. I actually think this deck is an S tier, tier 1 deck now that Guardian Chimera is legal. This card is fucked up insane. This card says you can use any 3 monsters as long as they have different names to fusion summon it. It's 3,300 attack, so it's huge. It has 3 effects. Basically, it has to be fusion summoned with monsters on your side of the field or your hand. You can't take your opponent's hand, and you get what I'm saying. You can't super poly, because super poly doesn't use monsters from the hand. So you can't super poly for Guardian Chimera, which is unfortunate. Otherwise, it would turn super poly into this super board breaker. But you can brand it in red into Guardian Chimera, and that's super broken. There's a way you can get around Ash Blossom on the Guardian Chimera draw effect by using Branded in Red to return Despian Tragedy. This bounces back Tragedy. You banish the Tragedy from your hand. You banish whatever from your field or hand. And then you summon the Guardian Chimera. Chainlink 1 Guardian Chimera. Chainlink 2 Despian Tragedy. Despian Tragedy searches for a Despian monster. Your opponent can't respond with Ash Blossom. And then your Guardian Chimera either destroys 2 cards or draws you 2 cards and does one of the other. So it's really broken combo. If you have Branded Red plus Despian Tragedy into Guardian Chimera, it's like a +5, and you can do it at any point, which is fucking ridiculous. If your opponent goes for a Scythe, you're like, all right, pass, set Branded in Red, whatever. On their turn, Branded red, bring back tragedy, banish your thing, make a chimera, go +5 on your opponent's turn, blow up their whole board. It's so good. This card is so good. I don't know why they printed this. Like, I keep reading it, and then it even has upside. If you want to play polymerization in your deck, which you can do with a Frightfur package, I tested that a lot. I think the Frightfur package is hot garbage. I think it's like one of the worst ways you can play this deck. It 7 bricks into your deck for no upside whatsoever, other than it makes your Guardian Chimera untargetable. But you can do that. If you choose to include polymerization in your deck, it does make your Guardian Chimera slightly better. So this card is all upside. It's just great. It's one of the best cards in the deck. It buffs the shit out of your Branded in red. It buffs the shit out of your Despia Theater of the Branded. And yeah, it's just a huge buff to this deck. A few other parts of this deck that are super good. Well, I guess I should touch on the Frightfur stuff. I don't play the Frightfur package because most of the Despia monsters have abilities when they're used as fusion material monsters. The Edge Imp Sabers, which is the card you normally play, or Edge Imp Chain, sorry, not Edge Imp Sabers. The Edge Imp Chain is the card you normally play. This card is, and it has an ability that it searches for another Frightfur card when you use it as a fusion material. And then the Frightfur card you search for is Frightfur, fuck dude, I don't fucking know what it's called. Patchwork, Frightfur Patchwork. This card adds a polymerization and Edge Imp monster from your deck to your hand. This engine is kind of interesting. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's just 7 bricks. After the first one resolves, the rest of the 5 cards are bricks in your deck. And the upside is you get a search when you use Edge Imp Chain as a fusion material monster. I think you can just skip that, forgo that altogether, and then don't play that, because the card that Edge Imp Chain searches for is a brick anyway, and just go for the Despia stuff. When you use the Despia monsters for fusion material, they all have very high upside +1s. Whereas Edge Imp Chain is like, yeah, it's a +1, but you're searching for a fucking brick, so what does it matter? When you use Dramaturge as a fusion material monster, even if it gets banished, it gets special summoned to your side of the field, and then it has a built-in effect failure, and it's a 3000 attack monster. Like, what the fuck? Why are you not just maxing this and instead of playing Edge Imp Chains? You know what I mean? Like, this card is just so much better. It's like, you get that same +1, but it's like an actual real card that has super upside and becomes an auto-interrupt and all this other shit. Despian Tragedy. When you use it as a fusion material monster, you get to search your deck for any Despia monster. Super broken. Even when it's banished, even if it's sent to the graveyard or banished. Same thing with Ad Libitum. If it's sent to the graveyard or banished, you get to special summon any Despia monster that's in your graveyard or banished. It's so broken. It's super good. The only ones that don't really have upside is Aluber and Comedy, but both of these monsters have effects when they're in the graveyard that can give you value later on in the game, which are still better than using an Edge Imp Chain as a fusion material monster and getting a useless brick in your hand. For the support cards in this deck, I've decided to play Foolish Burial and Goldsark as starters. I side out Goldsark almost every single game. I think it's like the last card in this deck that I would include, but I'm including it just to make sure the starting hand is as consistent as possible. I have 2 Triple Tactics Talent. This card can brick in multiples. You'll see in one of the replays it does brick in multiples. And it's only really good against decks that are playing hand traps or when you're forced to play into monster negates by activating something like a Mystic Mine or whatnot. It's kind of this weird thing where it's good given the right situations. It's good in a lot of different situations. I think it's good enough to main deck 2 of them. The effect is insane. Usually when you resolve one of these, you win the game immediately. But you do got to be a little careful. Of course, the other support cards, Call by the Grave, Super Poly, you got to have these. I think Super Poly is like one of the best cards. The third one is sided. I think manning 3 is a little too many. I've got Triple Nib, Triple Veiler. The reason I'm using these is I think they are the best hand traps in the format. I don't really think that Ash Blossom is great because you can't turn it into a fusion with Despia Theater of the Branded, and I also fucking hate Ash Blossom because it's hard once per turn. When you draw multiple Veilers, you can at least use both of them in the same turn, which is good. And if they're dead in the matchup, like let's say against Eldlich, for example, you can use them as fusion materials for your fusion monsters like Masquerade, Quertus, even I think Proskenian uses it. You can use it for just about anything. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think the last thing I want to touch on is the Fusion Destiny stuff. I explained this combo in the first Despia video I uploaded, but there is a combo where you use Fusion Destiny to start your whole Dex engine going immediately, and you summon a Phoenix Enforcer and an Alubear, and I think you have like 6 pieces of follow-up or something. It's pretty good. It's pretty good combo. And it all stems off of just resolving Fusion Destiny by sending Tragedy plus Denier. We're not playing the Celestial in this deck. You could choose to include Celestial. I have a build of this deck that plays the Celestial over the Gold Sarcophagus. I do think Celestial is good when it's good, but I think the issue is that when you draw it, like let's say I draw Gold Sarcophagus. Gold Sarcophagus will always get me started, whereas Celestial won't always get me started, but will always give me follow-up. So it just depends on what you value, and I think this deck doesn't have a lot of issue getting follow-up. I think it does have issue getting started. So that's why I've elected to include the Gold Sarcophagus over the Celestial. In the sideboard, I've got 2 Kaijus. These just are catch-alls. They can pick off monsters that might give you trouble, monsters that might be locking you out. I have triple Lancia and triple Ghost Ogre. I think these are the best hand traps in specific matchups that are also lights, which I can use for fusion material. I think Lancia is super good against like Phantom Knights, super good against like Dragon Link, that kind of stuff. And then Ghost Ogre, of course, is really good against the Brave Engine stuff. I've got a 3rd Super Poly because sometimes against decks, you just really need 3. It's just the best card. I think against Dragon Link, it's like one of the best cards. Against, in some of the other decks, it's a good card. Against like Sword Soul and stuff, it's pretty bad. That's why I don't have the full 3 mained. And the discard cost is very, very real. So when you discard for cost for this card, you do feel it. Your deck needs 3 cards to get going, I believe. It needs a Fusion Initiator and then 2 Fusion Materials. So having to discard another card on top of that it's a little difficult to support in this deck. I've got the 3rd Triple Tactics. This comes in against decks that are just like playing 15 hand traps like Sky Striker. I think Triple Tactics is really busted when you know it's going to resolve, and I think that's definitely when you want the 3rd copy. And then I've got 5 back row removal cards. I think these are the best 5 back row removal cards in the game. You've got Harpy's Feather Duster, Triple Cyclone, and Red Reboot. Red Reboot is like, it's like so broken, especially in a deck like this where you have so much OTK potential. Just needing that one turn, just getting that one turn is usually all you need in order to win the game. Cyclone Banishes, that's really what it is. It matters a lot. It does conflict with Lancia a little bit. That does come up. So I've considered other cards, but Twin Twisters is not so good for the same reason. Super Poly, it kind of requires a discard. Your combo already needs a lot of stuff to get going. I think Cyclone is just the best catch-all. It's also good against Scythe. It's also good against that sort of stuff. It's good against all the field spell stuff that's going on. And Feather Duster is just the best sweeper as of right now. It's unconditional, just destroys all spells and traps. It's the best thing at what it does. In the extra deck, you've got 2 Quertus, 2 Masquerade, and 1 Proskenion for the Despian fusions. I think these are all the best ratios. I don't think you need more than 2 Proskenion. I think you definitely do need 2 Quertus and 2 Masquerade. I summon 2 Quertus almost more than I don't, really. And 2 Masquerade comes up a fair bit too. Not as much as 2 Quertus, but it definitely comes up. For the Super Poly targets, I've got Starving Venom, I've got Predaplant Triffioveritum, I've got the Predaplant guy, and then I've got, that's it. Those are just my 2 Super Poly targets. They're good enough, I think. I think they both take Dark Monsters, which is a little awkward, but most decks are playing Dark Monsters. I don't know. I think I might consider something like a Mud Dragon or something like that to just break Barons and stuff, but people can play around Super Poly pretty easily in those decks by just not making a second win, so I'm like, I don't know. And then, of course, you can make the Despian monsters if you just have a Despia monster in play with the Super Poly, so I think these 2 are good enough. You can make an argument for the other Predaplant guy, who's like a Veiler, but this guy's pretty good. He's got like a Black Horn of Heaven effect, and I think he's pretty strong. You've got the first Dark Lord. This is an OTK enabler. If you have 3 Despia monsters and Theater of the Branded, you can make the first Dark Lord and win the game. I think he OTKs depending on your setup. I think if you have Tragedy, Aluber, and either Dramaturge or Ad Libitum, you win the game, I think. I did the combo in a previous video where it OTKs and it goes like +7, but I can't remember exactly what it is offhand. I don't go for this, I think, in any of the games today, but it does come up a fair bit, so you definitely want to include it. Guardian Chimera, obviously a super bomb. I would play 3 if I had the space, but the 3rd one comes up very rarely. It's kind of like the second Masquerade. They come up very rarely. Predaplant and Linkuriboh, I am playing both of these. I think they're super important. Predaplant just gives you something to do in case your play gets stopped. Maybe you put a body into play like with Aluber, and then they Veiler you, then you Triple Tactics, take their monster, go into Predaplant. I think that's the most common that comes up. But yeah, it's just good to have in this type of deck because it gets your engine going and it gets your best cards in play. I've got Linkuriboh. The reason I have Linkuriboh is because if you start with just Tragedy and branded in red, you can normal summon Tragedy, link off into Linkuriboh, and then branded in red back your Tragedy, and then banish that plus the Linkuriboh to get Aquarius plus a search for your Aluber, or any Despia monster that you might want, like maybe a Despian Comedy to help protect your Aquarius from targeting effects. For the last 3 monsters, I've got Destiny Hero Dangerous, I've got Phoenix Enforcer. These are obviously for the Fusion Destinies. You need the Dangerous in order to go for the startup combo with Tragedy and Denier. And then sometimes you end up just going Denier plus Dasher for the Phoenix Enforcer itself. You could make an argument to cut Dasher for Celestial as well, but then you'd be forced into going for the field spell to get out your Destroyer guy, and I don't think that that's really where you want to be. Sanafond, it's the last monster in the extra deck. I think it's a very, very powerful card, especially in this deck. It's a lingering effect, so it helps you play around stuff like Forbidden Droplets, Dark Ruler no more. And it comes up in a couple different situations, I think, where I have multiple Masquerades that come back and just need something to do with them. Sanafond is probably the best thing to be doing. I could maybe consider the Vampire card, because we do play Triple Tactics talent, which I think is pretty good. But this card doesn't guaranteedly put up any sort of interruption or effect on the opponent, so I think Sanafond is just the best thing you want to be doing. Anyway, that's the explanation for the deck. You know, if you play this deck, if you know it, these are kind of the choices that I have. But yeah, that's about it. Let's go ahead and get into the games. All right, replay number 1. Replay number 1 is versus Sect. Sect is playing the based combo deck. It's a 60-card combo deck that uses the new Illusion of Chaos, I think the card is called, to put together a draw engine, and it also uses Small World and Etelli and all these really sweet cards to build an insane board. I'm going to be playing the Despia deck, which I've obviously talked about in the intro, and let's get into things. I think I win the RPS. I do. So I decide to go first. We both wish each other good luck, have fun, all hype stuff. The opponent's hand is pretty strong. They have 2 hand traps. They have the Forbidden Droplet, but unfortunately they did draw the Despot 001, and they have no way to really get started. They do have ways to interact, though, so if they do top deck a starter, they're out here. Forbidden Droplet Pitch Destrudo isn't even the worst. My hand is pretty great. I have Fusion Destiny, I have Branded in Red, and then I have Nibiru Effect Veiler, which is also really good. I have a couple different ways I can approach this turn. I could start off with the Despian Tragedy, activate Branded in Red after I link into Link Karibo and do that play, or I could just start off with the Fusion Destiny and end with DPE, Nib, Veiler on that, and then have the Despian Tragedy plus Branded in Red for follow-up. I could also just set the Branded in Red and make a Chimera on the opponent's turn. So I decided to go for the Fusion Destiny because the upside is higher if it resolves. Unfortunately, the opponent has Ash, and so I decided to just pass. I can't actually do anything else with my turn. I can't make a Link Karibo because of the way this card is worded. It says I can't special summon monsters except Dark Hero monsters after it resolves, so unfortunately, can't happen, so I don't get to do that. So I just pass the turn. I've got Nib anyway, so I don't really want to commit anything to the board because it'll probably just get nibbed away and make my opponent's token stronger. So I'm cool with just passing here. Effect Veiler plus Nib is a strong combo. It's a high impact hand trap. Opponent does top deck a starter. They top deck Vishuda. It's not a great starter. But it does get them a body in play. It allows them to make Baron, allows them to do some stuff if they want to. So they decide to go for Special Summon Vishuda, Normal Summon Ghost Ogre. This card is good to know about for me because Ghost Ogre is really good against the Theater of the Branded. In Game 2, I do side out one of my Theaters of the Branded, and I focus kind of in my brain around not going for Theater of the Branded to try and play around Ghost Ogre a little bit more. This card's picked up a lot in popularity, and it does hurt the Despia deck when you use the fusion field spell, so you gotta kind of think about that when you go for it. Sect says he's gonna freestyle, so he's gonna mix it up on us. He's gonna make, I believe, Halku Fibrax. Yeah, so he decides to go for the full Halku combo instead of just going into a Baron, maybe having Baron plus Droplet. But this is what he decides to go for. I think, noting that I just passed the turn after my Fusion Destiny got stopped, I think there is an argument to going for Baron. You do have the Vishuda to bounce something, you do have the Forbidden Droplet to negate something, and then you will have the Baron to negate something, so you'll have 3 interrupts against my hand, which you think is probably dead because I led with Fusion Destiny. I think that's just good enough to go for here, but he decides to combo it out and is going to get punished. Special summons the Despot from hand. This is going to link off into the Auroradon. Auroradon is going to make 3 tokens, and that's going to bring back the Despot because of the Despot's effect. I do think on the summon of the tokens if I want to nib, and I decide to just nib once Despot hits play. This gives my opponent the weakest token, and they have to have quite a bit to kind of play through things. Oops. That was a little quick, but I top deck the field spell, I draw it, I play it, I activate it, and the opponent concedes because their hand is a total brick. And I'm going to be able to deal 8,000 pretty easily, even through a Droplet there. Game two, my opponent gets to go first, and their hand is really stacked. They have Fusion Destiny, they have Right, and they have Small World. So they have pretty much everything they need to full combo here. And they do have a 3-star tuner, which gets them started, I believe. I'm not sure if they need to summon it or if they need to Small World it away, but we'll see. So we fast forward here. They start with Right. They want to go for the Brave stuff. I have no hand traps, but I do have Talents plus Super Poly, so I'm not going to concede the game just yet. I kind of want to see if the Super Poly is going to be high value against their deck. I kind of want to see what the deck ends on. They go for the Right, special summon the token, get the thing, get the thing gets the thing. Oh, just kidding, thing doesn't get the thing. They're going to go for Small World straight up. They're going to banish the Ghost Bell, face down or whatever, and then they're going to go get the Water Enchantress, banish that face down, and then they're going to search a red Rose Dragon. The way this card works is when it's sent to the graveyard for a synchro material, you can special summon one Rose Dragon monster from your hand or deck. Then if it was sent for the synchro summon of a Black Rose Dragon or a plant synchro monster, you can also add one Frozen Rose or one Blooming of the Darkest Rose from your deck to your hand. So Small World resolves, summons a red Rose, uses the Fateful Adventure to tutor out the Equip spell, and then to tutor out the Griffin as well. They believe they pitch the Right. Yeah, they have to pitch the Right. They either pitch the Right or the... No, I think they pitch the Equip spell, actually. Yeah, they pitch the Equip spell because that comes back. Yeah, when you pitch it, you can bring it back to the Brave token, so it's like a free discard kind of. Gives them a free bounce. Then they special out the Griffin. The Griffin gives them a Solemn Judgment here. So now they have a Solemn Judgment. It also gives them a 7-star body, which they can synchro in with into Red Rose Dragon. And, well, I guess not into Red Rose Dragon, but with, synchro with Red Rose Dragon. You get what I'm saying. They go ahead and synchro. They make the Baron. This is sent to the graveyard for a special summon of a synchro monster. So you can special summon one Rose Dragon monster from your hand or deck to the field. Okay, you get a special summon Rox Rose Dragon. Rox Rose Dragon is a card that when it's normal special summon, you get to add one card that specifically lists Black Rose Dragon. Basically, this lets you search for Rose Shoot. There we go. This lets you search for Rose Shoot, which lets you e-tele a Rose Dragon back from your graveyard. It's kind of like a cute little engine that adds into reusable tuners. Not reusable, but just like it's like a tuner that summons another tuner that summons another tuner. It's like a chain. It's like a tuner chain. Basically, Red Rose Dragon gets you 3 tuners. And the third one is this Basil Rose Shoot, which is an e-tele from the graveyard. Gonna link those two off into the Halqifibrax. Halqifibrax is gonna special summon the Despot. This is gonna be another combo, basically like what they did last game, but they're gonna be able to do this uninterrupted this game. So we'll see what they do. They go Auroradon, get the 3 tokens, which is pretty big. Then they special summon out the Despot. They're able to synchro into Yazi using Despot and 2 of the level 3 tokens. Baron's going to pop the Yazi. Yazi has an effect when it's destroyed, you get to special summon a worm monster from your deck. The worm monster they choose to summon is Mermare. This is a super cool card. It's like a pregnant seahorse. Summons little baby Mermares. This card, you get to decrease its level by 1 and special summon a level 1 token. This is a powerful effect for a lot of different reasons because you just get 3 tokens, I think. How many cards? Yeah, thrice per turn. Such an interesting wording. You can make 3 tokens in 1 turn with Mermare. And then on the following turn, if it's still around for whatever reason, you can make even more. All right, so Mermare is going to make 1 token, and then they are going to use the Basil Rose Shoot to bring back the Rox Rose Dragon. Rox Rose Dragon plus the Mermare token is going to make this Archer card, and this Archer card is going to gain 3 stars because it used a level 3 tuner. This becomes a 7-star tuner synchro, and they can use that plus the Mermare token, the second Mermare token, to make a Borreload Savage Dragon. This is where I think my opponent bucks up. You know what I'm saying? They saw Despia Theater of the Branded. They saw it. So they know I'm playing a fusion deck. And because they know I'm playing a fusion deck, they know I play Super Poly. If they have Crystal Wing, if they have a different synchro monster that isn't dark, I would say definitely make that instead here. Borreload Savage Dragon is going to equip a monster, and it's going to get 2 tokens, which gives them 2 Omni Negates on their Borreload Savage Dragon, which is pretty busted. And they do get to search for a tuner because I think of one of these cards searches for a tuner. I'm not really sure which one. But yeah, one of these cards searches for a tuner. They get the Crystron Creation Resonator. This lets you just special summon it from your hand. It's a Cyber Dragon tuner. Uses the Auroradon to tribute itself to pop the token. This is just to create space on the field so that they can continue to combo off using the Creation Resonator and their Fusion Destiny that they have in hand. Opponent activates Creation Resonator. Or no, they activate Mermare first. That's right. They activate Mermare first, bring out the 3rd token, special the Creation Resonator. synchro off with those two. Oh, just kidding. Link off. Make Artifact Dagda. Activate Fusion Destiny. I say the Fusion Destiny is okay. They bring out the Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. And here I have a little disagreement with my opponent. The Artifact Dagda does need to chain to the Fusion Destiny. And I did say that the Fusion Destiny resolved, so they don't get to use their Artifact Dagda here. Now, the only reason I made a big deal about this is because it doesn't matter. I'm winning the game anyway via Super Poly and Triple Tactics. But honestly, I just want my opponents to play properly and like play in the right sequence, because I'm testing for YCS. This is a ladder game for rank. You just take it seriously. Take it seriously. If you mess up, you mess up and own it. You know, that's what happens. Okay, on my turn, I draw. It is funny too, because my opponent asked me if I wanted to just go to game 3, and I said no, I don't want to just go to game 3. And then here I'm able to just go into main phase 1 and activate Super Poly and just fuse away their Phoenix Enforcer and their Borreload Savage Dragon. And I'm going to be able to make Starving Venom. Starving Venom's really, really good here because when it's summoned, it gains attack equal to the opponent's special summoned monster, which is going to be Baron. It's going to be able to gain 3,000 attack. But if they do negate this using Baron de Fleur, then it will be destroyed. And since Starving Venom Dragon has Starving Venom Fusion. What the fuck is this shit? All these cards have like 40 lines of text for names. It has an effect when it's destroyed that nukes my opponent's entire board. So even if they do negate here, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of thing. Fusion Dragon activates. Artifact Dagda is going to activate. They are going to get their Lancia. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon is going to gain 3,000 attack. It's going to attack over Baron de Fleur. And then I'm going to be pretty much free to play the rest of the game. I'm going to be able to summon my Aloubert. If the opponent wants to do anything, I have Triple Tactics to take away their last card. And that's just going to be curtains for the base deck here. This deck was able to play through a full combo with just one Super Poly. Granted, our opponent did just mess up a little bit, but even if they didn't mess up and they grabbed like Scythe and they were able to do that whole Scythe thing, I could just chain Super Poly away their monsters, get the Starving Venom, and be in the same exact position. This is just kind of the power of Super Poly. It lets you play through just about anything. Your opponent can't respond to it. It's fucking broken as shit. And I think this is like one of the best decks to abuse it. All right, next replay. GG's to Sect. Sorry about the whole like ruling thing, but I mean, when you're playing a ladder game, you got to play accurately. That's just the way it goes. The next replay is against Floowandereeze, which is a deck that I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what it does. I know what the hand traps do. I know what the resolved effect monsters do. I know what the boss monsters do, but I don't know what the little monsters do. I mostly just ignore those. My opponent wins the die roll, and they do get to go first. This is a little bit unfortunate for us. Our hand is all right. We do have Aloubert, and we do have Nibiru. So if they do decide to go off, we do have Nibiru, and we do have a starter in our hand. But it is a little bit more fragile than like an average hand with this deck because we only have one starter and we only have one hand trap. Because Nibiru is only once per turn, you can't use both of them obviously in the same turn. The opponent is going to start things off with a Pot of Extravagance, and they're going to chain the D-Shifter in their hand. D-Shifter is basically a one-turn cycle macrocosmos. Now, for the rest of this turn and the following turn, any card sent to the graveyard will be banished instead. All of the Floowandereeze monsters, I don't know what they do, but they get effects when they get banished, as far as I know. They're going to start things off with this Robina, which I think searches. Yeah, searches a monster, searches Eaglin, gives them an extra normal on Eaglin. I don't know what this does. Guess it searches for the boss guy. So the boss guy is the one I know about. It says monsters that your opponent has special summon can't activate their effects if they're in attack position. And then once per battle, you can banish a card from the hand and then basically turn all of your cards into Honests. This is going to be a really difficult card for just about any realistically like reasonable deck to deal with. It's really hard to run over in battle. It stops all special summon monsters unless they were brought out in defense position. And it just stuns the opponent in a really awkward way. I think it also has an ability when it's banished. Let me see here. And then all these cards get effects when they're banished. I think they go back to the hand or something. Opponent has only summoned 3 times, so I don't get to Nibiru quite yet. They get a tutor for this spell and trap card. Well, I think they play... Okay, yeah, they tutor for this spell and trap card because of... So they're able to tutor for this trap card when the Empen is tribute summoned. This trap card is basically like an ultimate offering, like a one-shot ultimate offering. And if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to do stuff. Thankfully, it's not going to be able to go to the graveyard this turn because of Dimension Shifter or on the next turn, so that's going to keep my stuff pretty safe. But the opponent does have a pretty good setup. They're going to activate the map, which is, I think, the other card you could search for. This card makes it so if I normal summon a monster, which I'm going to be pretty much forced to do here, they get to normal summon a monster from their turn and kind of combo off on my turn. Okay, so on my turn, I pick up Despia Theater of the Branded. This card is really, really good draw. I can start things off by summoning Alubert and just searching for either Branded in Red or Branded Opening, depending on how I want to move forward with my turn. So I'm going to summon Alubert. This is going to start a chain link with the Floowandereeze and the Magnificent Map. That's going to activate. So they're going to normal summon out their Robina. Here, he goes through all of his effects, and then we got to go do a little bit of a replay. So I'm going to fast forward through all of this real quick, and then we'll talk about the replay that happens here, because I didn't resolve the Alubert quite yet before he was going off here. Alubert searches for Branded Opening. So when this effect resolves, the new chain is started where I just wanted to respond to the initial Robina effect with Branded Opening to bring out the tragedy, pitching my second copy of Nibiru. This is a complicated sequence of events, but basically what happens is Alubert's chainlink 1, the map is chainlink 2, the map resolves, summons Robina, Alubert resolves, I search Branded Opening, then Robina starts a new chain, which I can chain then Branded Opening to by pitching Nibiru, and then summoning out the tragedy, and then Robina resolves, which is going to summon the Eagling, which is going to search the Avian, and then that's going to summon the Avian, and then this is the end state we got into. It was a little bit of a confusion to get through because there's so many different like chain links resolving and starting over again and all that sort of thing, but we managed to get there. So I've got a tragedy and I've got an Alubert in play, and I've got some stuff. My opponent actually has summoned 3 times this turn, so my Nibiru is pretty close to being live. One thing that's super cool about Nibiru is it just says during the main phase. It can also be during your main phase. So, if my opponent summons 5 monsters on my turn, I can use Nibiru on the board. This is definitely going to be something that comes up in this game. Next, I start off with Despia Theater of the Branded. This is going to allow me to actually do stuff, basically. So I'm going to activate Theater of the Branded here. I think what I go for is Queritus, but what I should have gone for... No, yeah, I go for Queritus. The reason I go for Queritus is because if I go for... I don't know, actually. No, I'm capping. I should have gone for Chimera here. So I make a bit of a misplay. I don't realize that I can chain block the Chimera quite yet. But if I go Despia Theater and then I pitch Ad Libitum, Despia, and Tragedy, I can actually chain block so that my Chimera guaranteedly resolves. And I think that that's what I should have done here. But instead I go for the Queritus, which is... It's more or less the same thing. It's going to end up in a similar board state, but it's also going to let me clear the Empin this turn and the Apex Avian as opposed to just one of them, which I think I would have trouble doing if I had gone for the Chimera, depending on my draws. This happens. Queritus gets summoned. Tragedy is chainlink 2 or chainlink 1, I believe, and Dramaturge is chainlink 2. Because these both of these monsters get their effects when they're banished. So the Dimension Shifter, honestly, hasn't hurt this deck at all. And that's something I want to point out. This deck can play through D-Shifter really, really well, which is super dope. It can also play through this like average like Floowandereeze setup, which is really, really dope. Even without the Guardian Chimera, which I probably should have gone for here, all things considered. Maybe not. We'll see. So I form a chain link here. I form a chain link between Tragedy, and I form a chain link between Dramaturge and Tragedy. And then those are gonna activate. I ask if my opponent has a response. They don't. I chainlink 3 Queritus. So what's happening now is that all of the monsters in play that aren't fusions become 0/0. Since this is chainlink 3, it resolves before the Dramaturge comes out. So you can use the Dramaturge as material for the Queritus, then chain Queritus to the Dramaturge effect to make everything 0/0, then bring out a 3k monster, more or less. That's basically what happened here. And then Tragedy searched me for another Alubert, so I have follow-up. I attempt to enter my battle phase here to try and run over the Empin and Avian, and the opponent activates their trap card in the main phase. This card says during the main phase, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 level 4 or lower wing beast monster. So my opponent uses this to normal summon their Stree, which if this card's normal summon, you can target 1 card in either graveyard, banish it, then immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon 1 wing beast monster. Okay, so this happens. I let this card resolve. That gets banished. It goes to the grave. Now, Stree effect activates. I think I do nothing. I think I just let this happen. The reason I let this happen is I can't activate Dramaturge because it's in attack position, and Empin locks me out from activating attack position special summon monsters effects. The opponent is able to get another summon here, which is going to be a tribute summon for Ryza the Mega Monarch. And it's going to activate both of the effects. This is going to kind of skip forward to the end here, but spoiler alert. spoiler alert, now that the end pin's no longer in play, I can Dramaturge the Ryza, and then they chain Avian, maybe counter the Dramaturge, and then I can Nibiru and clear the whole board and get stuff going. Their Ryza is going to resolve if they do clear the Queritus. With the Ryza, we will get to summon a monster from our deck and get an effect there as well. But ultimately, this Nibiru is going to wrap things up, and I think the opponent just had enough of the complicated interactions and decided to leave. I thought this was a really cool game. There was like so much crazy shit happening. Even watching it in review, it's like super fucking confusing and like interesting. And I'm sure there's a million other plays and a million other lines I could have gone for. But I wanted to show the versatility of this deck, playing through something like Dimension Shifter, which says, you don't have a graveyard. And this deck just says, okay, I can still do all of the things. And it played through a lot of other stuff too, like an Omni Negate, a Floodgate, a fucking other Floodgate, a monster that's going to bounce 2 cards. And I still had pretty much the advantage the whole time. This is a really super cool match. I wish I could have finished it out. I need to test versus this deck more. I think it's a pretty good matchup for the Despia deck because you just don't care about D-Shifter, and all of your monsters have very high equity effects against all of their monsters. But I need to practice it a little bit more, and we'll see how it goes in the future. On to the next replay. This is the third and final replay, the Despia Movie, the third act. This game is a slog. This game is versus Eldlich, and I think this game is it's a grind fest. It's a grind fest. It will really showcase the power of the Despia deck in grind games for sure. I think I win the rock, paper, scissors. I do. So in winning the rock, paper, scissors, I get to open this hand. And this hand is, as you'll notice, quite bad. Quite bad. But thankfully, the opponent has no way to stop our Fusion Destiny. And Fusion Destiny really does get our whole deck going. The opponent's hand also is not the best. They do have Skill Drain and Goes Match, which are good cards against me. But we are going to have the, what's it called? Fusion Destiny Hero Enforcer, whatever. Here I'm going to showcase the Destiny combo. Send Tragedy, send Denier. Special Summon out. The Dangerous Fusion. The only reason you use this is so you can use the Dark Effect monster plus Destiny Hero materials. The other effect only comes up ever if you're playing Celestial, or if you want to get your Dasher into grave. Since our Dasher is in our hand, the other effect is never really going to come up. It's mostly just for just a ladder into the end combo. Tragedy is going to be able to search us our Alubert. Alubert is going to be able to search us our field spell, which is super important in this matchup because if Alubert dies, he gets to bring back any fusion monster, thanks to the theater. Get to bring back the Denier because we have the Dangerous. I believe that's how it works. What does it say? If you have a Destiny Hero monster on the field or in your graveyard other than Denier, yep, since we control the Dangerous, we do get a special summon back Denier. This is summon number 3. Then we can use the field spell to fusion summon those into the Phoenix Enforcer. I know this looks pretty bad, right? This looks like a pretty bad board, but we do have some really, really interesting upside to it. Alubert floats, DPE floats, and the branded theater gives us like a lot of different follow-ups, right? We also have Tragedy in grave. So if they do destroy the theater, we will be able to activate Tragedy and set our theater and reuse it again on the next turn. So we do have follow-up. Our whole board basically floats, and we do have some cards in our hand that will get us going next turn once we bring back our Despia in case it gets removed. The only issue with this is if we get OTK'd or just completely like just blown out by like a super combo deck. But this is a weaker start from this deck, and even this weaker start is deceptively sticky and hard to get through. Let's see what the opponent's able to put together. Okay, they top deck Nadir Servant. They're going to be able to play that. They send Elder Entity. They search for the Dogmatica card. Here, they decide to pop the Phoenix Enforcer. This kind of made me think they maybe had a way to remove it from play. So I was like, I wonder if they have a way to remove it from play. Now looking at their hand, I'm curious why they popped that instead of literally anything else. Maybe they were thinking they'd be able to pop the other 2 cards using Eldlich, Golden Lord, and just the battle, basically. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess, given the way they're about to play this next turn. Our Fusion Destiny, or not Fusion Destiny, our Phoenix Enforcer effect is going to activate in the graveyard, and then they are going to special summon out, or normal summon out Dogmatica Ecclesia and activate the effect to search. This search is Dogmatica Punishment. I was wondering if they did play Knight, if it was better to search for Knight here. It is more pressure, given the Eldlich and everything. But, searching for Dogmatica Punishment isn't bad. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. I just think that going for more pressure from the opponent might have been a better play. The opponent thinks here for a minute. They activate Pot of Prosperity, banish 6. I say that that's okay. They are able to look at the top 6 cards of their deck. and they're going to be able to pick up an Eldlich, and they'll have 5 other cards they could have picked from. They could have picked Solemn Strike or Solemn Judgment. That wouldn't have been the worst. They already have a Lord of Heavenly Prison, so there's no real reason to pick that. I don't think there's anything wrong with picking Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike here. Yeah, they decided to get their engine card going, which totally makes sense because you want to have something good to pitch with Eldlich here. This does mean all the damage on their turn is going to be halved. I don't catch it immediately, but I do catch it later on and do correct it, so just want to say that before we get too far into the turn. They are going to activate Eldlich the Golden Lord here. They're going to, after they return the stuff for Pot of Prosperity, of course. They activate Eldlich the Golden Lord. I'm asking which effect it is. I am reading the Golden Lord. I've played this card before, but I still don't know if it targets, and that's why I was asking to read it. They pitch it with the Eldlich of Scarlet Sanguine in order to try and pop the Despia Theater of the Branded, but we do have the clutch Despian Comedy to protect the Despia Theater of the Branded. This card's super good because it can not only protect your monsters, your fusion monsters, your high value stuff, but it can also protect your Despia spells, like Despia Theater of the Branded. This is super important because now if they try to get rid of our Alubert, we will use the Theater to bring back our Phoenix Enforcer, and then the Phoenix Enforcer will get us a pop this turn. They banish the Eldlich, they set the Wakero, they activate Eldlich the Golden Lord, they're able to pop the Wakero, their full engine is online here, they're going to be able to special summon out the Eldlich, they gain 1,000 attack, which is super big. They set their 3 back row, I believe they reveal the Heavenly before they go to the battle phase. This is to play around the DPE coming back, which is a smart play from the opponent. They attack over the Alubert, the DPE does come back in the battle phase to prevent the Ecclesia from attacking directly, and then they pass the turn. During the end phase, they activate Wakero of the Golden Lamp. And here I have a choice. Do I want to activate Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer, or not? There is a little bit of an awkward choice here, because if I do activate it, I'll only be able to bring back the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. I can't get 2 uses of the reanimation effect. So since that's already like activated and resolved, then, or not resolved, since the graveyard effect's already activated, I can't get it like again this turn, so I'd only be able to bring back 1 monster. And I think on my turn, I was thinking, I kind of value the body of the other Destiny Hero monster coming back a little bit more than I value popping the Ecclesia here. I can clear the Ecclesia pretty easily with just about any normal summon in my deck, so I think that just getting the extra body back from my graveyard is higher upside. And that's the reason I decide not to pop the Ecclesia in the end phase here. The opponent is going to Wakero, they're going to be able to set another Eldlich, and they are going to pass the turn. In my standby phase, I am going to be able to bring back the Dangerous, and I pick up Terraforming. Terraforming, not the best. We already have the field spell, Mystic Mind, not doing much here. Lord of Heavenly Prison, it's super important to note that it only protects set spell and trap cards. Face-up spell and trap cards are a free game, more or less. And that's about to come up here in a minute. I pick up the Terraforming. I have to think a little bit before going for my fusion play. I do use the Despia Theater of the Branded. I decide to fusion away the Dasher and the Ad Libitum, I believe. Yep. And this is going to get me... Oh, and the Dangerous. Of course, I go for all 3. That's what it is. That's why I wanted the body. I wanted to go to Guardian Chimera. Of course, I wanted to go to Guardian Chimera. So, Despia activates. It uses those 3 as materials. Special Summon Guardian Chimera. Chainlink 1 is Guardian Chimera. Chainlink 2 is Ad Libitum. Okay, so the opponent responds Chainlink 3 with Skill Drain. I respond Chainlink 4 with Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Opponent resolves Chainlink 5 with Dogmatica Punishment. Target the Enforcer. Sending Elder Entity. Chainlink 5 is the last thing to happen here, so that's what's going to happen. The punishment is going to destroy the Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. The Phoenix Enforcer effect is going to resolve. I'm going to destroy the Theater and the Skill Drain. The Skill Drain is not going to resolve because it's not face up. And then the Ad Libitum is going to resolve. It's going to special summon out Alubert. The Guardian Chimera is going to resolve. It's going to pop the Dogmatic Ecclesia because the set cards are protected by Lord of Heavenly Prison. And I'm going to draw 2 new cards because I used 2 fusion materials from my hand. Now a new chain link is going to start. It's going to start between the Graveyard effect of Phoenix Enforcer. It's going to start between the Summon effect of Alubert, and it's going to start between the Graveyard effect of Elder Entity and TSS. The Elder Entity is going to pop the Chimera, the Phoenix Enforcer is going to activate, and the Alubert is going to search a second copy of Branded in Red. The reason I search for a second copy of Branded in Red here is because I want to be able to play one this turn and on the following turn. or just have a really large amount of follow-up that can bring back the tragedy or the ad libitum and just give me lots of recursion. One thing I could have done here that I kind of messed up on was the elder entity targets. So what I could have done is I could have activated the Despian Comedy. This card has an effect where I can tribute a fusion material monster. I could have tributed Guardian Chimera and special summoned out the Despian Comedy. I missed this in the game, but this chain was super crazy. There's like 18 effects going on here, and missing this is something that I'm going to have to keep an eye out for in the future. I could have definitely tributed that and had an extra body to be used as a fusion material at whatever point. Anyway, next up, I decided to go for Super Poly, using my Alubert and their Eldlich the Golden Lord as fusion material monsters. This will allow me to play around a few different things. I'm going to make Queritus, I believe, here. One of the ways the Eldlich deck kills you is by battle, pretty much, and Queritus makes it so all their monsters are 0/0s, more or less, and that just makes it really hard for them to deal with. Also, Queritus has a really good effect where if it leaves the field by an opponent's card effect or by battle, I do get a special summon a Despia monster or a Fallen of Albaz from my deck. I don't go for Branded in Red straight up because the monster that you summon off Branded in Red can't attack directly. So there's no real reason to go for it yet. The opponent goes for Goza Match on the summon. I am able to chain Branded in Red. And the reason I chain Branded in Red here is because Queritus is a light. I want to get it out of play before my Phoenix Enforcer comes back so that I can fully utilize the Phoenix Enforcer. Branded Red's going to add back Despian Tragedy. It's going to banish both the Queritus and the Tragedy. It's going to make Masquerade. And then the Tragedy's effect is going to activate in a separate chain after Goza Match resolves. This is going to search for me Dramaturge. I search for Dramaturge because I just want to have big pressure and maybe OTK the opponent next turn. But in hindsight, I probably should have just searched for another Alubert to guarantee that I had a really solid normal summon on the next turn that could attack over an Ecclesia in case the opponent wants to wall me out with something like that. Next, I activate Terraforming. This is going to search for Despia Theater the Branded. I just want to get this in play because on my next turn, if I do manage to put a fairy monster into play, I want it to float into one of my fusion monsters. I'm going to activate the Theater now. I'm going to attack directly with Masquerade. The opponent's going to take 2,500, drop to 4,500. And this is when I realized that I should have taken half from the Prosperity turn earlier, and I'm just correcting that, and that's not a big deal. Okay, next up, standby phase. Phoenix Enforcer comes back. The opponent drew Solemn Judgment. So, the opponent has some decisions to make. Every card they activate is going to cost them 600 life points with Masquerade in play. This is a very real clock, because any one of these hits can put the opponent on not being able to activate anything for like the rest of the game. The opponent can reveal the Lord of Heavenly Prison and get it into play, but it is going to get blown up with the Phoenix Enforcer, so they have to be careful of that. They're going to pay 600 to activate the Lord of Heavenly Prison. They're going to activate the Golden Lord effect in grave to summon back, which is going to sacrifice, well, pseudo-sacrifice their Scarlet Sanguine. That's going to cost them another 600, put them to 3,300. The Eldlich Golden Lord comes back. It's able to attack over the Masquerade. He needs to be able to activate cards without paying a bajillion life points, so he's going after the Masquerade, and attacking over the Phoenix Enforcer doesn't really do much, because I can just, whatever. Here I could have used the Phoenix Enforcer to pop the Masquerade in the Goza Match, but I think I just let the battle go through. In hindsight, I probably should have done that, but, Another thing that I miss here is that when the Masquerade is destroyed by battle, I can actually summon back out the Alubert from my graveyard. This is something I really should have done or considered because that would give me an extra body. It would also float with the Despia Theater the Branded into either one of my fusion monsters that had been killed. And I don't know, it's just a missed value, basically. It's missed value, and I should have gone for it. Instead, I elect to go for nothing. I just let it die. That's a little bit of a misplay on my part, I think. I take a little bit less damage than I initially thought because the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer makes the opponent's monsters lose attack points. Got to remember that. There's so many things you got to remember. This is kind of the hardest part about current format Yu-Gi-Oh! So there's just a million effects you got to remember, and you got to be on all of the time. If you miss any one of these effects, it can cost you games. I do and don't like this about current format Yu-Gi-Oh! I really like the complex interactions that are in these games, but I also think that memorization is kind of like a lame skill to have in order to play this stuff. I think it hinders people with weaker memory, which is something I don't really like about it. But, hey, whatever. We're out here. Scarlet Sanguine activating. Opponent going to be able to set, I believe, Conquistador from their deck. And their engine's been fully online this whole time. Pretty crazy. We've been able to get out of all of this with just resolving a Fusion Destiny on the first turn of the game. and then having comedy to back up our theater. That's crazy. It's crazy to me that this is the way the game has gone. The opponent is going to pass the turn. On the end phase of their turn, I'm going to activate the Phoenix Enforcer and try to pop the Gozen match. And then the Enforcer Graveyard effect is going to activate. I do believe do I use the Branded in Red here? I'm not sure if I use the Branded in Red. I don't use it here. I could have done it in like their draw phase or something and popped their other back row, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Yeah, maybe it was best to just hold it like I did. I think I thought that through during the game, and now watching the replay, I had to rethink it through. Sometimes that happens. All right, the draw for the turn is Triple Tactics Talent, which is, it's pretty dead in this situation. It's not dead if the opponent chooses to special summon Lord of Heavenly Prison, but it's dead otherwise. Here in my standby phase, they try to activate Conquistador of the Golden Land to try and pop the Despia Theater of the Branded. I am going to chain the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer to target the Conquistador and itself, or not target, this card doesn't target, but to destroy the Conquistador and itself. The Conquistador doesn't resolve, so they're not able to pop the theater. When I go to the main phase, I'm going to activate Branded in Red to try and add back, I believe I was trying to add back Ad Libitum here. Yep, I targeted Ad Libitum. If this had resolved, I would have been able to fusion summon a monster using Ad Libitum and Dramaturge, special summon out the Dramaturge, Ad Libitum, special summon out the Alubear, and just go like +5. Branded in Red is seriously like the most insane card in this deck. I can't imagine not playing 3. It's so broken. Once you get into these sort of game states, it's just the best thing you can be doing. And this kind of shows why. It forces an opponent's Solemn Judgment here, which I don't blame them. It's fucking busted. And then I think we just have to pass the turn. Unfortunately, something that I did look up, the Conquistador of the Golden Land, I did consider letting this resolve to try and activate my Triple Tactics Talent, but the Conquistador of the Golden Land, even if it's special summoned into a monster zone, it's not a monster card. So it doesn't activate Triple Tactics Talent. So that's why I did decide to chain that. If any of you guys were wondering, that's how that's ruled. Okay. I think, do I have any grave effects here? Any grave follow-up? I think I just passed the turn. Yeah, I think I just passed the turn and get my Phoenix Enforcer back. This is just showing the strength of Phoenix Enforcer. I've been able to play through like, what is it now? Like 5 high-impact trap cards just with one Phoenix Enforcer. This card is so good. Opponent bricks a little bit. They pick up a second copy of Golden Lord, which is unfortunate for them. And on this turn, their Eldlich loses the attack points. The only thing they can do is banish the Conquistador for follow-up, and I think they've run out of targets for that to get, or maybe they had one more, but I can just parry that with the Phoenix Enforcer, and then on my turn, I can go the fuck off, so they decide to concede. That was an insanely grindy game, but it showed the power of the deck. It showed the power of like the Despia monsters floating and getting stuff going and all the different little synergies and circulations. And it was also, I think, the first game I summoned Chimera and was able to draw a couple cards off that. That card is super busted. It's super busted. You saw the Branded in Red into Chimera, I think it was, or maybe it was the theater into Chimera. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it drew me like 4 cards or something like that, and it got me a 3,300 body. It's a really busted card. Super busted. Okay. Game 2. Game 2 is a little tricky. I think I misboarded in this game. I left in Called by the Grave. I left in Triple Tactics Talent. Called by isn't bad, okay? Don't get me wrong. It can hit the Golden Lord. But if you're doing that, are you really winning? Let's be honest. It's not great. It's not great. Triple Tactics Talent, oh man, I just shouldn't have left these in. This was just a mistake on my part. And then I do have the almost exact same opening with Fusion Destiny, Despia Comedy, and Ad Libitum that I did in the last game. Unfortunately, for me, my hand isn't so good going second, and our opponent has a lot of ways to kind of fuck us up this game. They are going to be able to set all of their cards and just hold the Mystic Mine until we've made a board, and I brick on a second copy of Triple Tactics. This is probably the worst draw in the entire deck. I go for the Fusion Destiny. Opponent's going to chain Dimensional Barrier. It's going to completely stop the Fusion Destiny from resolving, and I'm pretty much just cold here. I don't really have any plays. I'm forced to just set the Call by the Grave and pass. Opponent's going to activate Eldlich end phase. So their engine is online, and they have, 2 live back rows. I have nothing going for me. I'm backfooting. I'm under huge pressure from this Eldlich. It's going to attack me directly for 2,500. They're going to be able to get the other Conquistador or Wakero. I believe they grab the Conquistador here. And the draw for turn was a copy of Solemn Judgment. So I'm just fucking cold this game. I'm going to be honest. I terraforming for the theater. I activate the theater. They chain the Conquistador, and I concede this game. And we go to game 3. Unfortunately, we did kind of break there, but that's honestly not the fault of the deck and more the fault of me. I sideboarded. That's something that happens a lot in current format Yu-Gi-Oh! Is if you sideboard wrong, you are going to get punished for it. You need as many live cards as possible to play through your opponent's interrupts, play through the interactions, and establish an interaction of your own. In that game, I misboarded and wasn't able to do that. I sided back out the triple tactics in this siding session. I believe I was siding something like, I was siding out 3 Nib, 3 Valor, and I think I was siding out Gold Sark and something else, and I was bringing in the Lancias, and I'm not exactly sure how else I sided. I brought in the Triple Cosmic and Red Reboot and Harpy's Feather Duster. I think I brought back in the Gold Sark over the Triple Tactics, and I brought back in just like a Valor or something over the Triple Tactics. I don't remember exactly what it was, but that's what I did for Game 3, and I think it ended up mattering. We'll see if it did or not. Game 3. I get to go first, and my hand is pretty fucking good. If my opponent doesn't have a hand trap, I'm able to do some crazy shit. I've got Red Reboot, which is honestly the best card in this matchup. We'll see if it comes up or not. The opponent's hand is, I don't know. I think it's all right. Dark Ruler and Dimensional Barrier are interesting cards. I don't think Dark Ruler no more is really good against my deck because my deck's effects activate mostly off the field, and also like my cards are all just kind of like beaters anyway. Dark Ruler no more doesn't really decrease the effectiveness of my cards' beaters. I'm not putting up like 6 negates like a normal fusion deck would with like Dragoon or with like whatever. Dark Ruler no more is a good way to kind of deal with the Phoenix Enforcer, but then I get the graveyard effect, so I'm not really sure how effective it is really. Dimensional Barrier, it is an okay card. I think it's alright going both first and second. Again, my deck doesn't really put up Omni Negates, so there's no real reason to have it here. It's kind of like a soft effect Valor. It kind of locks me out. And my deck has a pretty good time against Dimensional Barrier because it has Super Poly and Branded in Red. I can kind of like fusion summon at instant speed and play around it. Anyway, I start things off with the Branded opening. I decide to pitch the Super Poly, I believe. Yeah, I pitched the Super Poly. The way I'm thinking about it is I'm going to have to pitch 2 cards if I keep both of these cards, and I want to keep all of these cards in my hand. I go for the Despian Tragedy. The reason I go for the Despian Tragedy instead of the Alubear is because if the Alubear gets stopped here, it's so much worse than if I Despia and then go for the Alubear after and get the Tragedy in grave. So I go for the Theater. I fusion summon the Tragedy and the Artifact Lancia. I special summon out the Quer. That's going to give me a search from the Tragedy, and that's going to grab me Alubear. Alubear is going to grab me Branded in Red, I believe. Yep, Branded in Red is going to be the search. And I'm pretty set up here. I've got Branded in Red, which can make a Chimera, which gets me a draw, a search, and 2 pops. And I've got the Theater, which floats my Alubear into any of my fusion monsters. And I've got the Queritus, which floats itself into any one of my deck monsters. And on top of that, I've got Red Reboot to go for an OTK on the following turn. I'm going to go ahead and set the Branded in Red and pass. My opponent's going to start things off with a Prosperity. That's all good. They banish 6 monsters. Let's see what they have. I'm curious what was in their deck. They have the Titaniclad, Artifact Durandal, Makaba, Cyber Dragon Nova, and Pleiades. Interesting stuff. Pot of Prosperity is going to find them a starter card, which I believe is Nadir Servant. I believe they're going to use this to grab Nadir Servant. They have all the trap cards in the world in their hand. They just need a way to get pressure going. They're in a must-answer situation. If they don't answer the stuff that's in play, they are going to die on the next turn. Opponent activates the Nadir Servant. I mistakenly think that you need to send for cost. I asked my opponent what the cost is, and then I said, is it cost to send? And they were like, no, it's actually not cost to send. I'm like, okay. Well, in that case, I will chain Branded in Red. Branded in Red is going to add back Despian Tragedy, and then it's going to be able to banish the Tragedy and the Alubear to make Masquerade. The reason I make Masquerade here is because I know whatever they send is going to have an activated effect. That's going to be 600 points of burn. Both of my monsters attacking directly is going to be 5,000 points of burn. If they want to activate something like a Solemn Judgment or a Solemn Strike or a Skill Drain, they're going to be well below where they want to be in order to play the rest of the game with an active Masquerade in play. The Tragedy is also going to give me a search. It's going to search me a Alubear after the Nadir Servant resolves. Nadir sends Elder Entity. That's going to grab Dogmatica the Virtuous. And then the Elder Entity is going to be Chainlink 1. Alubear is going to be, or not Alubear, Tragedy is going to be Chainlink 2. And they're going to have to pay 600 life points because of Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. The Elder Entity is going to pop the Theater, which is, it does suck. It does suck a little bit, but we don't have any fairy monsters that are non-fusion in play anyway, so it's not really helping us float much, and our Owlbear can always grab another one on the next turn if we need to. Opponent starts off with Dark Ruler no more. They're going to have to pay another 600 for this into the Masquerade. I'm actually not quite sure why they activate this here. I guess, I don't know. I think they could have just special summoned the Dogmatica, Ecclesia Dogmatica. Does that affect activate? Let me see. If a monster special summon from the extra deck is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Okay, that effect activates. So basically what they're doing is they're trading Dark Ruler no more for 600 life points, which, fair enough. That might actually be something that's pretty important here for them. They're going to special Dogmatica Ecclesia, effect to search Dogmatica Punishment. Not having the Knight yet again is very interesting. I think Knight would have been pretty good here because they could special summon it, force the Quertus effect, and then kind of wall me out a little bit more easily. But maybe they just wanted the punishment for maximum like trap card pops, and they're going to get like super punished by this red reboot as a result. You guys can already see they have no Solemn. They have no way to stop the red reboot. On our turn, we're just going to be able to OTK them no matter what trap card they go for first. They set 5 and pass. We pick up Despia Comedy, which is actually a pretty solid pickup. It's going to prevent any targeting effects on the Owlbear. Here I'm going to summon Owlbear. I'm going to search for something. They're going to chain Skill Drain, pay 1600 because of the Masquerade. We are going to think for a minute, and then red reboot. They're going to try to chain Metaverse, but since Metaverse is not a counter trap, it cannot be chained to red reboot, and that's just going to be the game. This would have been a really interesting game to play out. I think we could have grinded through these back rows. I think it would have been really difficult to, but I think we could have for sure done it. I'm not exactly certain what would have happened if our opponent went for the Metaverse and got the mine. Let's say they did have Solemn for reboot, and they went super, super low, and the skill drain resolved, and then they Metaverse out mine. That's interesting. But basically, we could play around mine by finding another Despia Theater of the Branded, because the Owlbear wouldn't have resolved, I guess. This is all curious. This is all like curious stuff, but we do end up winning the game here, and that shows the power of the deck. Shows the power of Despia. It kills people really, really quickly. It does it through a lot of different interruptions as long as you have your counterplay, and it's a solid deck. Anyway, if you guys like this kind of video, if you guys like this kind of like super feature match against like competitive like stuff like that, and if you learned something from the video, maybe leave a like, maybe leave a subscription if you're a newer viewer. Anyway, peace out, guys.